Hello everyone, welcome to KV with Keaton. Today we're on a very special date. Today's Thursday and not our usual Sunday time because we're going to bring in one of the best wrestlers to ever come out of Scotland, a true British wrestling legend, former ICW World Heavyweight Champion, a true different kind of wrestler. You know, when you look at today's wrestlers, this is why I respect this guy, because when you look at today's wrestlers, they're all the same. You know, a lot of them are, or even the women's wrestlers, you know, you have the typical blonde female wrestlers, or you have just the typical kind of person that will fit into a certain kind of character. But this guy defied the odds and became one of the most well-known wrestlers in the history of UK wrestling. So today, I'm proud to bring in British wrestling legend, the one, the only, Jack Jester.
Hello.
Thanks so much for
that was a lovely intro. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yep. Well, a very good intro. We're a very special person because I'm honoured to be having you on today, especially on this special date as well. Because we normally go live on Sundays, but I'm happy to have you on this date, and it's a pleasure having you on.
Thanks for moving days for me. Yeah, I mean, you contacted me. Was it about 3 weeks ago or something?
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So it's great. It's a cool thing you're doing here. I think I should probably start by addressing again the elephant in the room. I don't often wear sunglasses at home, and I'm not trying to look cool. I've just got my yearly bout of pink eye, which comes with 20 plus years of wearing contact lenses. So I look like I've either got the worst hay fever in the world or I've been crying on it. Neither. So try and ignore these as much as possible. I'm not trying to look like Keith Richards or anything.
That just shows the pain of even keeping your character. You know, you've worked within contact lenses so many times, people don't understand.
It's honestly, it's I've been wearing that contact lens for over 20 years now. And it's you get used to it. Obviously, you don't feel it or anything like that. But I'm really pernickety. Like I won't take a photograph with somebody unless I've got it in, and I won't do anything without it. So yeah, I'm normally put my sunglasses on if I'm out, but it looks slightly stranger when I've got my sunglasses on, sitting in my living room. So, but then with the contact lens, you're wearing it. So, at my busiest, like I used to. When I was working for All Star years ago, I was like my early 20s. I wasn't a Jack Jester. They wanted me to be the Scottish guy because the whole thing was the UK versus the rest of the world. So you had the UK All Stars versus the World Riot Squad, and there was an English guy, there was a Welsh guy, there was an Irish guy, Scottish guy. So when Drew got signed to WWE all those years ago, you know, they needed a Scottish guy. They brought me in, but they didn't let me be Scottish guy, Jack Jester. They changed my name, gave me a kilt, gave me Drew's Scotland flag, Drew's music, and just sent me to that. So, but I didn't wear the contact lens the whole time. But I think what's happened here is Panto. So I do Panto every year, and it's as Jack Jester. So I'm wearing the contact lens for like 70 shows in a row every single day, and it takes its toll more than any barbed wire ever did.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when you mentioned her, you know, you were told to look a certain way, you were told to be a certain way. How did that feel, you know, not being told to fit into that mold?
I hated it. I didn't like it. Because I've like wrestling for me, I mean, it's subjective. Everybody's got their own thing. People are mega fans of Bret Hart. People are mega fans of Mr. Perfect, The Undertaker, whatever it is. I was the character guy. Like I get into wrestling kind of late considering, but it was the Attitude Era, and I think anybody who was a fan during the Attitude Era will, you know, stand up and say it was the best. And a lot of people are going, it's just nostalgia. It was the best. It was the best. So I was a massive Mick Foley. Mick Foley was my hero. Mankind was Mankind when I started watching. So I was always really interested in the theatrics of wrestling. I loved the technical stuff, but it wasn't for me. Plus, before I was a wrestler, I wanted to be a clown. That was my dream. So I was trying to mash all that up. So I started when I was 16, and you're obviously a 16-year-old creative. You're throwing every idea of lists of names and color schemes and blah blah blah. And then I came up with the contact lens thing. And one of the coaches at the time, in fact, I was speaking to Wolfgang about this on my podcast a few weeks ago. I put the contact lens in, And he just kind of went off his head. He's, just to try to embarrass me. Nobody's going to see it. You should learn how to wrestle before you start dressing yourself up. And it's a good lesson. And, if you just listen to everybody, I would have taken that out and never wore it again. But I ignored them and did it. And it's become quite possibly the thing that I'm most recognised for, because it's hard to ignore when you go one white eye. So I started with that. And then when I went to All-Star, it was all stripped away, and it was just be that person. And let me tell you, when you're part of the babyface team on shows in England and you're Scottish, it's a hard gig. It's a hard gig. And then they used to book silly matches like Drew McDonald versus somebody, and Drew was the bad Scottish guy, and I would run in and see the good English guy. The big grudge match, Drew McDonald versus Lee Thomas. Scotland's Lee Thomas was my name. They're like, we're doing this in England. Who are they going to cheer for? They're two Scottish guys. They want us both to lose. They're desperately trying, waving my flag to bagpipes every day. So, but no, it doesn't sit well with me when, not when I'm told not to do something, but when it comes to being creative, I think, how can you be wrong? It's me that's doing it. If you don't like it, you don't have to. But it certainly worked for me.
Yeah, and even when you talk there about being told to look a certain way, and it's sometimes in wrestling that is a really big deal. I believe that there is sometimes maybe they're right, but when you talk there, like I think that you're one of the, and you can obviously speak for yourself, but I think you're one of the biggest names in UK wrestling, or maybe were, because of you being different. Because if you fit in that mold of being the strong Scottish wrestler, maybe things wouldn't have worked out as well. And even the WWE right now, right now, have Danhausen as their mystery guy, and Danhausen's cool, I think, but I think it's a wee bit comedic. But I obviously run my own show called Indie Wrestling Uncut, and I've had Killer Cross on. I was only at a convention for a couple of minutes, and he said, "The cut your legs are from underneath you." That was his exact words, because they told him to be a certain way, and he said he wanted to perform the way he wants to perform and be who he wanted to be, because they want them to fit into that, but sometimes that doesn't always work out.
No. And first of all, Killer, what a guy! I love him. We've had some really good nights at me and him. Great guy, really. And again, it's that thing where it's kind of like, I don't know why you fight it. Like he's got this thing he wants to. So I always say, but in fact, it was I had 2 WWE tryouts years ago, right? And William Regal was there at the time, and he, we had to stand and he gave us advice, and he was saying, every wrestler that comes in WWE wants to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Why would it? Because he was the coolest, the baddest, he was the most over. Yeah. But there's only one Stone Cold Steve Austin. And he said, and Regal, this was a really interesting point, because if you talk about legit wrestlers, Regal's it.
Oh yeah,
like he really is. Like he's there's not many people that are more experienced than him, or as wise as him, or I went through what he's went through. A guy from Blackpool that started out in the wrestling booths at the Pleasure Beach, working all the way up. Now, he said, if the office or the creative team come to you, you're obviously nervous because you've worked your whole life to get to this point. If they say to me, we'll get this great gimmick, you're going to be a flasher. A flasher meaning, you open your coat and there's no clothes underneath it. Regal said, but then I might not like it, but it's my job to be the best flasher I can possibly be on TV. Now, but I don't think everybody's capable of being a chameleon like that. Do you know what I mean? Like Regal, some of his best stuff is the silliest stuff. Like the Las Vegas Showgirls match. Like it's one of my, because it's almost obvious what's going to happen. You spin the wheel, it lands in the one thing he doesn't want. He has to do it, but he doesn't want to do it. And when he walked out the entrance, and he's got the high heels and the big feathers, but he walked, looked, and acted like William Regal. He was tripping over, and he still had the face. That was one of the funniest things. But if you can take yourself and just turn the volume up a little bit, do you know what I mean? Like it means that you're not spending every day at work trying to be this person.
I couldn't agree more.
What you said?
I'm saying I couldn't agree more. Like when you talk about even having that kind of character, when I started wrestling in NIPW, I love rock. Like I love 80s rock and
Same.
and like in Park as well, some 2000s. But I planned on calling myself the Lightning Bolt. That was my original idea of a character. I called myself the Lightning Bolt, and it's going to be like this high flying wrestler.
Yep.
But because I just wanted to be with what was happening at the time, and that was like Ricochet and Will Ospreay doing all the high flying stuff.
Yep.
But I realized that it was best at technical wrestling and doing a lot of the chain wrestling. So I just done what I was best at, and I created my character called the Kid of Rock, and it's got it over way better than that first character did.
Listen, you need to. I say this to every student I've ever coached over the years. You're going to come up with an idea. You're going to come up with a name. You're going to come up with a color scheme. You're going to come up with all this stuff because I know you're going to do it. I would never tell people, never mind that. Just learn to wrestle first, because they're excited. They're starting to. You cannot shut somebody's creative side off, and just it's such an old man, like old fashioned way. Let their mind race. Let them come up with ideas, but it will change because. It's always amazed me. You just talk about like 80s rock and stuff. So Aerosmith are my favorite band of all time. I love them. And like Steven Tyler wrote Dream On when he was 16. No, he's in his 70s now. He's still singing that song. And that amazes me because I couldn't imagine if I had written a song at 16, I don't think I'd be able to sing it now. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's like this. And I always say, if you get yourself professional, right? This is another thing as well. This is a job. It's meant to be a job, right? People want it to be their job. Then treat it like it. So you're not like I was always really, really strict. I think it was right. You're not going to get in that ring unless you have professional wrestling gear. Like you wouldn't. I couldn't get a job on a building site and show up wearing a pair of trainers. I need steel toe cap boots so I get sent home. So you're not going to get in the wrestling ring wearing a pair of Lonsdale trainers. You know what I mean? Oh, but wrestling boots are expensive. Yep. Save. That's just the way it is. So but it's the people get their name printed on stuff. Don't do that because I guarantee you in about 4 months you grow up so quick and things change so often. But it's like you said, like you had this idea with this high flying thing. But the good thing is you noticed and you became aware that it wasn't your strongest. You could have been so adamant and stubborn and just kind of went through your career being a kind of shitty flyer when you can go through your career being a really good technical wrestler. And that's what it is. It's just doing across the board. Trying your best to just do stuff that you love doing and that you want to do, because it's hard to go out there and do, again, like the All-Star thing. Like I was there for years. I mean, I did that for a long time, and I was by far the busiest Scottish wrestler in the world. I mean, nobody could touch me. Like there was a time I calculated it was like 28 matches a week. That doesn't even sound possible. But it's 4 matches every day. And it's, and you go, but that's the thing. It's like, I think wrestlers are programmed and kind of brought up to busy is good. Busy is good, absolutely. But the dream is to work less and make the same amount of money. And try to get that mentality of, look how many places I've wrestled, look how many, and I see guys that are my age and have been about for as long as I have, still bragging that they're doing like 12 shows a week. I'm like, I don't really see that. That's not something to brag about. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just, it's like you want to get to a point where you've put the work in and you've done that, and then you can take bookings. But it's I don't know if that day will ever come, but it certainly helps when you're doing all that stuff to be doing something you like, because when you're doing it constantly and you're sitting, you're putting a kilt on and you're waving your Scotland flag and you think, I just want to go home. And I was doing all this down south, so I hadn't been home for I don't know how long. But I just think that any anybody in wrestling, whether you're a promoter or especially a coach, is to nurture your students. You know, let their ideas come out and nurture them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even when you're doing wrestling, like the main thing is you did say they're turning things up to 1,000, but when you talk there about going and getting bookings, like when you're mentioning they're especially wrestling for All-Star Wrestling and trying your best to make it the full-time job. At what point did it really start for you? So obviously you were training and you were doing things. I think you started in 19. Were you wrestling in 98? No, it wasn't 98.
No, I don't actually. I am not a dates guy. You know more than that than I will. I started when I was 6. I can't even. So I'm 38 now, and I can't even calculate what age what year it was when I was 16. So, sometime in the 2000s. Let's put it that way. So I was 16. I was like I said, I got into it quite late. No, I got into wrestling quite late, as in watching it as a fan. But I love this story because it's so I was in my art class at high school, which is what I excelled at when I was at school. I was always a creative person. I still to this day can barely count. You know, it was always music or art, stuff like that. And I was a huge wrestling fan. I was at high school. Really, I was obsessed with it. And in Glasgow, the schools I don't know, it's like in Ireland, but the schools are dominated by football. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what everybody talks about in registration. The Celtic game, the Rangers game, the Hearts score, and I had no idea. I would sit with my portable CD player. That's how old I am. My headphones in, listening to WWF Volume 4, and just ignoring people because nobody wanted to talk about what happened at Raw or SmackDown. So I came at my art department, and there was like a smaller than A4 piece of paper on the carpet in the corridor, but it was yellow. The paper was yellow. I don't know if it was white, I would have walked right past it, but for some reason I stopped and I picked it up and I turned it over. It was red print, which is also weird. Yellow paper with red print. Do you want to be a wrestler? And I did, and it turned out the wrestling school was down the back of the hill behind my high school. So I started going there, and I would work in a pet shop on a Saturday, and that would be my money to train for the rest of the week. And we would train for 4 hours on a Tuesday, 4 hours on a Thursday, and 8 hours on a Sunday every week. And then I got I got my first full-time job I was wrestling the Haven Holiday Parks, and I left on my 18th birthday to start on them. And I got my start because one of the other Scottish guys had went down, I think maybe 2 weeks in, on their way back to Scotland, stopped the van so that he could climb the Welcome to Scotland sign and get a photograph. And he fell off and broke his ankle. And I stepped in. And that kind of was it for then on. I just kept going. So I started when I was at high school. I left on my 18th birthday for my first full-time. And the holiday park, I loved them. They were the best. They were the best back then. I mean, they're still good now, but just you would leave at 18 and you would do a show in, let's say, Craig Tarrant Air, stay there that night, drive to the next place, do the show, stay there that night. So you felt like a rock star because you were wrestling there in the afternoon, going out at night. But everybody was like, what, knowing who you were and stuff like that. It was almost like you could convince yourself you were famous, right? But just that lifestyle of just being in a van with your mates, traveling up and down the country, staying in caravans, partying, wrestling during the day, trying stuff out. And it was and there was nowhere in the world that was better to become a good worker, not a good wrestler. You could instinctively just tell that to this day, like I can feel like minutes. I can feel 7 minutes without you showing me. Be things like that, or how to feed off a crowd, or how to manipulate an audience, because you could, and if you messed up, you tried it again at the next show because there was hundreds of them. So you became really, quite good really quick. Your cardio was great. And bear in mind, you were doing all this with a full-time 8-week hangover. So if you can do that, then you can survive kind of the worst situations. But yeah, so that, and then I jumped onto Butlins, which is All-Star.
Yeah, I think that's probably the weirdest story I've ever heard about how someone got into wrestling with someone sending them a piece of paper on a table. Everyone was talking.
Nobody gave me it. I walked out of my art class, and I was walking down the corridor, and there was a piece of paper on the floor, but it was yellow. So I went, "What's that?" And when I picked it up and turned it over, of all the people in that school, it was me that picked it up. And
I think,
that's great.
sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
So even when you mentioned her, like looking at that, there must have been that definitely wasn't a coincidence. It would be a very strange coincidence if so. But when you went round there and started trading, what a lot of people say, like when you take that first bump, it kind of decides how you feel. So if you take the first bump, you decide if it's for you or if it's not for you. So how was the first bump?
Terrible, and I'll tell you why it was terrible, because that was very much the days of learning the hard way, right? That isn't what it was at all. It was bullying back then. It was really it was you noticed a theme back then of coaches who had been coached by bullies, and the chain continued all the way through. So the kind of wrestling world then was kind of littered by kind of guys in their early 30s who had kind of had a really shitty time and been bullied by their coaches, who, to make themselves feel more manly, would then start bullying their. And I've never understood, and you could never explain that mentality to me. I just don't get it. Like, if anything, if you have been bullied, you know how that made you feel. Why on earth would you want to do that to somebody else? It's bonkers to me. I hated it. So there was a wrestling ring there, obviously. Now this training school was it wasn't even a converted garage. It was just a garage. It was, like a car garage. It's got a door and it's got a big shutter. It was one of those. So it was freezing inside. Summer it was roasting. But there was an old World of Sport ring. So really, really tall. The apron was maybe like a foot taller than normal rings, but we were not allowed in it. So we had to do everything on the mats first. So until we had earned the right to get in the ring, we had to do all. And I'm talking, and I really do mean everything, like suplexes, power bombs, spine busters on mats this thick.
It's crazy.
And it's a difficult one for me to explain, because I feel like that type of coaching and that the harshness and the kind of, I mean, it was bullying. Like it made me bomb proof. Like that's why I am the way I am, because it was hard, but it did. But the way I've explained it makes it sound like a nightmare, but there was nowhere I would rather be than in that place. I would run there after school. Couldn't wait to get there at the weekends to just get legitimately beat up for 8 hours straight. But I remember it because after my first day of training, the next day I felt fine. And I was like, wow, I've got away with this. The next day, game over. Like I couldn't sit down on the couch. I couldn't get back up. Like my body was straight. I was knackered. But we did that, and it was thinking back. It was because in that school alone, my first day at training is when I met Drew, because Drew was like living in Glasgow at the time. He was studying. And I told this story in my podcast as well. They kept saying, I was 16, bear in mind, and they kept saying, Wolfgang's back next week, Wolfgang. And I'm like, who is this Wolfgang you keep talking about? Wolfgang's back. And in I had painted this picture in my mind of like a 6'7" guy with long black hair and a big duster coat on and like sunglasses and a beard. And then next week came and Wolfgang did come back. He cartwheeled through the door wearing a pair of white dungarees with a pink stripe in his hair because he'd just been back. I think he was like in Tenerife or something with his parents, and so that was my first interaction with who Wolfgang was. But it was great. And talking about the 80s rock thing as well, I remember sitting in my room, and I wanted to use Welcome to the Jungle.
That's my theme song.
Right. So it's such a belter of a tune.
Yeah.
Bit of a long intro though. It's a bit.
Yeah.
Promoters don't like it very much. You know what I mean? But that was Red Lightning's Rudo. Yeah, that was his tune back then. So I don't actually remember what my first wrestling theme was. I don't know. But talking about being creative and trying to throw ideas, we laugh about this because, you know, I really do have. I'm one of the people that, if you look back, there's loads of loads of stuff that embarrasses me now. But at the same time, I'm kind of proud of myself because I thought, you tried it, you went for it. There's a photograph of me and Rudo. It must have been in our early 20s, and it was a newspaper. And I had a pair of like black trousers with like laces up the side, and I had boots with buckles on them. And I had a black and white stripy jumper that I cut one sleeve off of. I mean, it was different. That was the thing. Like, I never just wanted to have a pair of trunks. So I was like, no, at the time, like I thought it was a dog's bollocks. But looking back on it, I'm like, so we like to laugh about my black and white stripy jumper. But at least when I look back on those things, I kind of go, what were you thinking? Grado he's the only person I know that looks back on photographs of him from any era, and he'll show everybody in the room. Like, I mean, he's like so proud of himself. Like,
especially Grado out of all people.
Was that?
Especially Grado out of all people.
Oh, but Grado, because Grado used to be we call them moshers. Like, what would you call? You know, like he had like the big baggy trousers and like the big plugs in his ears and stuff, and he had that whole thing. You would never believe it now, but the Grado's still got the big hole in his earlobe, to where he just have it stretched out. And a wee fact: when he's doing some of his TV gigs, they put a flesh-coloured plug in his ear so that it fills the hole. But Grado's oh my god, he's a difficult man to describe.
But yeah, even when you mentioned her, you know, cutting a bit of your shirt, I always like the fact that things are different. Like, I think it's something that always makes it in wrestling. Even Saraya, who's now Paige, she done something different. I think whatever it is, it's different. Is more likely to succeed than the thing that is not normally the thing that's going on at the minute. So absolutely. Even with Cactus Jack, I believe that a lot of people weren't doing the exact same thing as Cactus Jack was doing, that exact character, and he made it. And he wasn't even. I'm no disrespect to Cactus Jack, but he wasn't doing the things that most people were doing. But I still do believe that Mankind, Cactus Jack, obviously the same people, are some of the best one of the best wrestlers of all time. Not because he could wrestle like everybody else, but because he could have a good character. Even when you mention their Grado is, I think, of this era, of this generation, he's probably when people think of British wrestling now, they'll say, oh yeah, Grado. He's kind of like the big daddy of this era.
He's not kind of. He is. Like, there's no. No, listen, and I can vouch for this, having been in the same company at the same time as Grado in the same country. Like, there's no. It's see, because Grado's the way he is, and he doesn't really put airs or graces on. He doesn't show up with a suit and a tie and try and be. Like, I think maybe folk overlook it. I mean, nobody can deny that it became a really big deal. But I don't really think anybody realizes how impressive that was. And it is the absolute perfect. It's you're saying there about being yourself and try. Like, he was unashamedly himself. He never tried to look cool. He never like, even with the Insane Fight Club documentaries we did years ago.
Yeah,
the camera crew's there, and he's going, "This is my bedroom, and there's my wrestling belt, and sometimes I practice my elbow drops." And
he was actually doing it on the bed.
Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff that everybody does. But you don't tell a cameraman that when they're filming you. He just did. So with him, like, he was people could relate to him because he didn't look like Drew, and he didn't carry himself like me. And it was like he was everybody. If you stood in the crowd, you could be empowered by him, because if he can do it, I can do it. Now, obviously, it's not as easy as that, right? But he, in fact, he told me, he said something to me years ago about how he was getting, he said something like, people keep asking me for photographs, that's annoying me. And I kind of went off on him. Like, don't be so ignorant. People are asking you, he went, no. He says, Jester, when folk ask you for photographs, they'll come up and say, excuse me, big man, can I get a photograph? And then you'll pose. And I went, right. And he goes, when folk ask me for photographs, they'll chase me down the street and jump on my back and go, Grado, you fat bastard. Because they feel like they know him. And they overstepped a bit. And I was like, right, okay, I can see why that can get quite annoying. But he, in fact, if anybody's watching this, if you followed the story of Grado, great. Try and look up, go on YouTube, I can't remember what they're called, and just look up. There's a video you'll see, and the thumbnail will be Grado in a black and yellow biker jacket with a helmet on, a white biker helmet, right? That video, every single time Drew is back here and we sit and we hang out, we watch it every single time, because I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know where in his mind this came from. It's about maybe 5 minutes long, and it jumps for I don't know how to explain it, and I'm not going to try and explain it. But where he got that inspiration from, I don't know, because it's not like he'd went, I'll kind of copy this guy. It was original, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's so good, and it's not it looks crap quality because it's filmed like an old camera or something. But when this happened, I watched Grado go from the Book Grado campaign outside in the crowd, we signed, right up to beating Drew. It's amazing. Like, it's not until I start talking about it sometimes that I realise, my God, like what we did was incredible. It was insane. It really was insane. But I don't even know why I'm talking about this anymore. But in a nutshell, Grado's Affy's nut.
Oh yeah, and I've got some comments coming in here. I'll get to that soon, but I've got some comments. So Darren Whiteside says Grado was such a laugh, a genuinely warm and funny guy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Try doing panto with him. Try doing 2 shows a day with him. Warm and funny. No, he is. He's not. There's nobody like him. There really isn't. He's a massive pain in the arse. I fight him all the time, but he is. And I remember as well, and when he became, because he got big quick, like really quick, because there was nobody else like him. And he used to get out, because bear in mind, Grado came in and became like famous quick. So he didn't have that big long road and the years behind him, and so the experienced guys. Grado had been wrestling about the same time as me, but he hadn't been doing anything. Like, he was like, I knew Grado. Grado used to be an MC in the shows. He used to do the ring announcing, and it wasn't until later that I went, because they called him Chipmunk. I think it must have been because of his cheeks or something. But I was like, were you Chipmunk? Because I didn't put 2 and 2 together. But folk didn't like it that Grado was getting so big and so over. And I always used to laugh at that mentality, because it's just pure jealousy. That's all it is. It's just jealousy. And I'm like, well, you're jealous of him for being so popular and so over. You're angry at him because fans love him. But look at yourself. Like, you're obviously doing something wrong. Do you know what I mean? Take a leaf out of his book or try and do something. But it's like, Grado used to take it to heart as well. Like, he would, and bear in mind, it was like, this is all new. He didn't have time to adapt to it. And folk were just kind of shitty to him, like, making like sly comments or just always reminding him that you're not even that good. You're just funny. And
yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? The fact of the matter is, every single person that was on a show with Grado at that time should have been thanking him, because Grado being on those shows allowed them to believe that they had something to do with the draw. You take Grado off that show, you come crashing to earth because you realise that you're benefiting, because if Grado's on last, you're getting to wrestle in front of the 700 people or the 500 people. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, but just remember who's bringing them in the door, and it was him. I just don't get it. It's like I don't understand this mentality of you can't be happy for somebody, you can't accept that somebody's doing well, or you can't.
I know.
Grow up. Like it could be such an easy job and a nice life if you just play the game and just enjoy it. But it's like these egos kick in, and it's like, well, maybe they just don't find a guy that posts all his egg whites and gym equipment 5 times a day very interesting. Like Grado did something else, and you just can't accept that that's what folk want to see. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't get it, man. It's just hard work to just hate people constantly.
I know. I completely agree with you there. And I'm going to bring another one of our comments here. So I was actually going to talk to you about this here, but of course, your fan club has already asked it. So he says, Kayfabe Keaton, you do get the best guests. Thank you very much for that. He says, Jack, what was Sabu like?
Oh, I loved that guy, and I mean that genuinely. I've never met anybody who lives up to expectations as much as Sabu does, and I mean that in every minute of a day that you spend with that guy. Like it's like no, really, if you're a wrestling fan, you've watched. I mean, you can imagine how many times I've watched Sabu matches and how much I idolize them. It's almost impossible to live up to somebody's expectations, because they're making them up in their mind, and then you don't match them. He was beyond what I thought. I didn't think anybody could really have been that mental, and he was. And it was the first time I ever met him was about half an hour before I wrestled him, and it was in Edinburgh. We had a show booked in a smaller venue, and we announced me versus Sabu and Grado versus Colt Cabana, and it sold out so quick that we had time to move the venue, and I think it was like it may have been 4 times. I can't remember. It was massive. So Sabu arrived late to the venue, and when he got there, he just kind of ran past me, and I'm like, I'll give him 10 minutes to get himself sorted. And so the bit of me, I'm about to wrestle one of my heroes. I've not even said hello to the guy yet. The show is in full swing. You can't escape the noise. And when I walked into the room, I just had it kind of stopped me in my tracks, because I walked in and I was like, "Fuck it, that's Sabu." He just looked exactly. He looked exactly like Sabu. He had his gear. He was ready. He had the bands around his arms. And his body was just zigzag with these scars, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" I couldn't believe it. And then I introduced myself. So we were working tonight, and Sabu was really soft spoken as well. You could barely, you had to go close to him. He was talking away and blah blah blah. And the last thing he did, before he walked out the door to go for his entrance, was while he was still talking to me, he took a coat hanger off the wall, a wooden coat hanger, and he snapped it, and he went, so I'll see you. Then he put the spike in his boot and just walked out. So like the whole time, I know this spike's in his boot, but I don't know why it's there, because he's not told me. So I made my entrance first, and Sabu was unpredictable, and I think he maybe no-showed a few shows or whatever else. So I don't think anybody really had any faith that he was going to be there. And you see the entrance online, and I mean, I react the same as the audience does, because the gap between my music and his, and then the drum beat happens, and he just comes running at the cup. I've got goosebumps thinking about it. It was absolutely brilliant. And that night, we were planning it. He said, I broke my collarbone like 3 nights before, and I said to him that we say, "What's Sabu really like?" This sentence sums him up. This is the best. And I went, "Listen, don't take any unnecessary risks out there. Don't do any dives, or you protect yourself." And he stopped me and he said, "They paid to see Sabu. They're going to see Sabu."
Mm.
Wow. It was the best. It was the best. He was such a sweetheart as well. And that night we went back to the hotel. Had one of the best after parties we've ever had. In fact, I went to the club afterwards, and Sabu, being soft-spoken, was like, I was like, I don't know what you're saying, and I kept going down, and eventually I could hear him say, "Do you want to dance?" So like I'm dancing with Sabu, and then Like a Prayer comes on, and I remember saying to Mark Dallas, "I'll give you my wages back if we look around that corner and Grado is not dancing to his own song." We picked Grado up to his own song, and then Sabu deliberately missed his own flight so that he could stay in party with us. But it was amazing, and I had the honour of wrestling Sabu many times from that point on, all over the place. So I was heartbroken when I found out that he died. But just what a man! There'll never be anyone else like him. And he was a genuinely good, lovely person as well. Like he lived up to his reputation, but just so caring. In fact, another story about him. We were wrestling. Me and Drew were wrestling each other in Coco in Camden, London. And there was a part of the match where Drew went at the toolbox and he drilled my head. So I'm in the middle of the ring and drilled my head. So Sabu kind of walked up the stairs and he heard us talking about this. And he went, "You're going to drill his head?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to use the drill." And he's like, "You guys are crazy." And then me and Drew looked at him. We're like, "You're Sabu." And he went, "You're Sabu." And he went, "Oh yeah." Took a step back and fell down all the stairs, and then just got up at the bottom and walked away. It's like describing a mythical person. He was the best, man. He was the best. I loved him.
And even I think Sabu shaped an era of wrestling for people of that kind of age, and in the ECW days as well. I think Sabu was maybe one of the reasons that was still going on, and and even the kind of style of wrestling he had, he wasn't. You can't really describe him of his style, because he would have done high flying wrestling, then he would have maybe used the chair sometimes as like a assist. Traditionally,
he invented that. Like, it's not. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. I think it's like, Sabu botched this and I mean, he botched a lot of stuff because he was constantly creating stuff and trying stuff, and like jumping on a chair, jumping on the top rope, balancing, like that kind of stuff. And bear in mind how long ago this was. This was a long time ago. But there's a few people that his mystique, very difficult to keep any sort of mystique now. Like, everything's blown wide open. But Sabu never stopped selling, which I loved as well. I also loved that about Terry Funk. Never. I think folk get it wrong when they try and play the tough character or the hard man or by no selling. That's nonsense. If you watch Terry Funk, the King of the Deathmatch tour, screaming, crawling. If he was hurt, he was screaming to the medic. And you're going, wow, that makes you feel something. Sabu was the same. Like, he never stopped selling. And it looked real. Every bit of selling it did look real, to the point where even I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got the responsibility of wrestling your hero, who is, he's injured all the time. The last thing I want to do is hurt him. But you're doing things, and you don't. His selling is so realistic that in the back of your mind you're always thinking, "If I hurt him,
is this real?"
Yeah. But we did a match in Inverness. It might have been the last time I wrestled him, actually, and Super Genie was with him. He's She was lovely as well. Just there's two people that are made for each other. Two of them were absolutely bonkers. But we're wrestling at this match, and the people are going, "We want tables." Now, I can hear them saying this, right? Of course they want tables. Sabu's there, but she's got in between us, and she's gone, "They want tables." Having a conversation with him, like, while I'm wrestling him, and then she would assist him in throwing the chairs and stuff like that. And I was like, "How do I take it?" And he went, just starfish, man. Like, she never lands it. She misses every single time. Like, oh, cool. So I'm lying starfish in the middle, and she throws it, and the chair doesn't even open. It just comes and cracks me right in the back of the head. And Sabu just bursts out laughing, right? Because he, of all the times, he's like, I'm not protecting myself. And it cracked me right in the back of the head. And I just going, oh, fuck. Oh man, he was absolutely brilliant. It was, they say never meet your heroes. Well, he blew that out of the water. And me and Mark Dallas could sit and talk about him all day. I could fill 5 episodes of this just talking about mad stuff that Sabu did in his everyday life. He was the best.
But that goes back to what we were saying as well. Before we went on air there, we were talking about a bit about deathmatch wrestling, and I think not deathmatch wrestling, but hardcore wrestling can be cool if it's done with story and done the right way. And in my opinion, no one will ever replace ECW. People have tried, never worked. And I think Sabu's one of them guys who can bring story into it and can sell like you said.
Yeah.
But when you were telling me there, you don't really like being called a deathmatch wrestler. How does it feel? When you're doing them kind of hardcore matches and being recognized as a deathmatch wrestler.
Well, you recognize I don't. It's not I don't like it. I just reject it. Like I'm not a deathmatch wrestler. There's a difference between a deathmatch wrestler and a wrestler who does death matches. And I'm the latter. I just psychology and story is everything. It never dips out. There's never an occasion where you don't use it. I mean, some folk don't, but you can see who those folk are. It's the same thing. It's like I said before I go on, like Mick Foley, Terry Funk. These people are still Sabu. Of all the people that have came after them, and all the mad bullshit things they've done, and the stunts they've done, you're never going to be them because it was they told a story. Like Mick Foley was the reason Mick is my hero, and the reason that Mick, of all the people and wrestling WWF at the time, he made me feel something. Now, I remember bear in mind I was at high school. Like I wasn't 5, but I still remember the nerves that I would feel before his matches. I would when he wrestled Triple H in the Hell in a Cell when he had to retire. My mum kept me off school the next day. High school, by the way, because she was like, if one person says something to him, he'll flip. So she kept me off for my own good because if somebody wanted to, and it's like that. It's just, and I say that wrestling's fake. Wrestling's fake. It might not be real. Wrestling might not be real, but the way it makes people feel is right. It's the best thing. Like it really is. Like I've never experienced anything like it, but because I felt like that, my whole goal in life and my career was to try and make somebody feel the way I felt when I watched my heroes and my wrestlers. But Mick was just a huge. And if you really look at Mick and what he could do and the way he looked, and he shouldn't have succeeded because he didn't fit that mold of WWF or anything like that. But you can't deny it. He was special and he was creative, and his promos were, just electric. When you say it, you think of The Rock, but his promos were really based on. He would challenge his feelings and blast them out there, and it was just the best. Like I was completely gripped by him, and it was very obvious because when he did. So I met Mick the first time. A long time ago, and when he came back and did the ICW thing with Drew and Grado, at the end of the match, the Black Label were all running down for like we always did, just try to ruin things, and I ran down the ramp and Mick turned around and put Mr. Socko in my mouth. So I'm like, and when I get back, like Drew had tears in his eyes, and I was when he was like. That's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Just because he knew how much I loved him. And we had it's wee things like that where you go, it's me and Drew, just like any other teenager, would sit and he'd sit in my bedroom, I'd sit in his bed, would sit and watch wrestling tapes and would sit and watch these people. And then, years down the line, Drew is backstage wearing white trunks that he wore at WrestleMania before. Watching me take Socko off Mick Foley in the SEC, it's none of it was ever deemed possible. And just these wee things, it's like, it just shows you how wrestling can make you feel like a grown man having tears in his eyes because his friend just got a sock in his mouth. it's so ridiculous, but he knew how much it meant to me. So it's the deathmatch thing. I think folk assume that I love that style, and I do, but only not anymore. Like, I just think I always want to go to Japan. Right, Japan's the one place that I would regret not going, but I wanted to go and do death matches in Japan, but I wouldn't do them now. Do you know what I mean? There's just no way. Yeah. It's not. They're called the same thing, deathmatch, but I'm not doing that because I just don't. It doesn't sound like it sounds like a ridiculous thing to do. It's like to fly across the world and just get hurt constantly. Now, when Mick did it and Terry did it, and you could go to Japan and come back a star. That doesn't happen anymore. So you'd be going to Japan to get yourself all sliced up, and then come back and just go straight back into the job you had when you were here. But I say this, it's a thing that I would repeat to my students. Moves don't matter. Moves don't matter. But they don't. It's where you put them, how you do them. I can get a bigger reaction for a shoulder tackle than some people can for a moonsault. Like, it's just, you need to put it in the right bit and make people care about it. Now, anybody can pick up a chair and crack somebody over the head with it. Literally, it's the easiest thing to do in the world, right? But if I'm taking and these chairs, by the way, I wish I could find where these wrestling chairs are made, because I've never found them. Like, they're just metal chairs. Now, if I'm taking one of them to the head, I want to make sure that gets the absolute best reaction it can get, because it hurts and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
If I'm going through if I'm landing in barbed wire, going through tacks, and it's for me, I would always the death matches I did were wrestling matches with two or three things put in there, and you would work towards it. It's the jeopardy, right? You set something up and it doesn't quite go. And I used to always like, I would always like to maybe get something set up, draw the attention to it, and then work for the next 10 minutes to make people forget that it's there, so that when you throw it, you just need to be smart with it. And I hate, another thing I hate as well is these big contrived weapons. Like a pentagram made out of carpet strips. Why is that there? It's like, are people that spend 80% of the match setting things up just to go through it? There's a guy over there setting up something that could kill me, and I'm just lying there watching him do it. What are you doing? Get up, try and fight back, try and avoid it. Do you know what I mean? It's just, that's why you don't get the reactions anymore, because it's just, you know what's coming. But Foley, I think has the most impressive things he's done. Obviously, the cell, right? That's all you ever hear about. And yes, that was his bit, and it was a mask. It will never be topped, and folks should just stop trying. It will never be topped. But he would take like these unprotected bumps, like from the apron to the floor, with no mats, and there's no way of. It's like, that's why chops are so over, because there's no way of explaining them other than it's actually happening. You're slapping somebody in the chest so hard it makes that noise. That's why folk love them. But if you're taking a bump for the apron to the concrete, there's no way of addressing that. You know that that's actually happened. And he would fully commit to it as well. You never saw Mick reaching or turning. He just done it. Like, he was famous for getting sent into the ring steps. And he would never turn his back. He would run full speed until his knees hit those steps and he would flat. And I've tried to do that. I've tried to mimic it so many times. And I can't do it, because there seems to be like a bit in Mick's brain where the danger thing doesn't kick in. Like, I can run as fast, but as soon as I see those steps, something in me wants to slow down. Mick doesn't have that. But these, and also these deathmatch wrestlers I watched a documentary, I don't know what it's called, and it just makes me cringe. It's like you are so desperate to look like gangster and hard, and It's like, shut up. Like this whole like stabbing people, like legitimately going out there to stab a person. That's no pro wrestling. You're a criminal. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
How could you be proud of that? Like it's like New Jack. I spoke about it because New Jack was a name that popped up often. You know, the kind of height of ICW. New Jack would be great. It's like, well, I'm not denying that New Jack coming for a match at ICW would get attention. It would, but I just wouldn't. I thought it was a bad idea because he was famous for kind of go to business for himself. And if that had happened at an ICW show, the locker room would have emptied. It would have ended up like a riot. There's just no way, because it's like the backstage area has to be full of absolute marks to be watching a monitor and watching a guy stab somebody and not run out and tackle him. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's crazy, but yeah, I've always I don't like being called a deathmatch wrestler because I'm not a deathmatch wrestler. I'm a wrestler who did death matches, and I did them when the time was right, and I didn't do them for nothing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you as well. When you talk about, even a shoulder block could get more attention than a chair shot, because
Yep.
in my most recent match, it was really, really simple. I think people plan too much stuff in wrestling. So at the start of my match, I done chain wrestling at the start because I'm a face, and then we had the cutoff for the heel, where the heel offered me a handshake, and I was hesitating. Obviously, that's a part of the story, and then dragged me into a headlock, and that got a lot of attention. Like, you had to see the boos people were giving this guy, and like the kid, and people were like mocking him and everything. It was crazy, but that got more attention.
That's the skill. That is the skill. It's being like, I had a, like, people used to say I had a like what was the word they could use, like not unusual, like an unusual amount of self-confidence, right? Because I would never doubt myself. Like, every wrestler's been in a situation where people will plan a match and it's all sorted, and then an hour passes where they've had a time to think and they start to get insecure and let's add this and let's add that, let's not do that. Like, just when you're planning the match, that it sounds right. If an hour passes and you start to doubt yourself, you're adding, it doesn't need to be there. If it needed to be there, we would have thought about it the first time. So it's Johnny Saint, who, I mean,
one of the best ever, in my opinion.
I mean, it's incredible. The first time I ever saw Johnny, I was in a show with him, and I was in Scotland somewhere. He was wrestling Bad Boy Liam Thompson, and it was the best, because it was seeing history in front of your eyes, and I mean that in every sense, because he was wearing his wrestling gear. It just looked old. It just, even the way the trunks were sitting, it was from a different era. He had his ring jacket on, which was for a different era. It was almost like a kind of like a dressing gown kind of style. And he went out there, and just, I mean, he must have been in his 70s. And I remember he came in, and I think anybody of this for this era wrestling Johnny Saint, nobody's got that comfort. Like, Johnny will grab a hold and stay there, because he knows they're not making noise now, but he knows what's coming, and you need to work it, and and Liam was going maybe like at least half pace to what guys our age would normally do, but it was still 3 times quicker than Johnny wanted it. And he came back, and he was just giving feedback, and he kept saying, I remember, "You're throwing your moves away. You're throwing your moves away." And I was like, right, I did know exactly what he meant. Let them. You're not selling something before you're in the next thing. If you don't have time to sell, they don't have time to cheer or boo or react. So you're just wrestling at them. Which is another thing I've always said is, don't wrestle at them, wrestle for them. And they're the boss, right? Like, you feed off them. So if they're, and it can work against them sometimes. It's like, don't just give them what they want. If they're chatting, like, for example, this is boring, do less. Like, show them, I'm listening to you, but it's not going your way. but the kind of the moves and stuff like that, it's you just see it, and nobody seems to kind of reference the fact that a lot more folk than ever are getting injured now. You know, more folk than ever, because they're not being and it sounds rich coming from me saying don't be careful, but I was like the art is in making it look like it's not safe. But it's I wish people, and I used to say to my guys, look across Scotland, right, Glasgow, whatever else, me and Grado, right? I said, why us? Why us when of all the people? Why us? Why are we still? And even the guys were training, I was like, I should not still be in main events. You should be, but until somebody takes my job off me, I'm still going to be going out there late every single night. And I remember saying to them, like, I dare one of you to steal my job, because it's what I wanted. I wasn't threatening them. I was like, I want somebody here to take this spot. If I was a good coach, and if it was my perfect ideal would be to be so good that I lost my own job, right? Like I don't want my students to be as good as me. I want them to be far better than me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean moves. Listen, everybody can do more moves than me. You know, if you do 1 week at training, you're probably already more accomplished than I am physically, right? But I'm like, I'm proving it to you every time I get there, because I would say something and go, right, well, I need to show them. So I would just go out there and like, who was it? I think it was Dallas. I did a show for Grado in the Pavilion Theatre in Glasgow, and I think it was me and somebody in the main event, and Dallas was standing beside Rampage Brown, who, by the way, he's the man. Like he's the wrestler's wrestler. He's the wrestler that wrestlers market for. So legit. I mean, everything looks. He is the best. He's brilliant. And but Rampage had noticed that I hadn't left my feet one time, and I would do this because nobody would notice, and I would do it to prove a point. I'd come back and I'd be like, "Watch that! I just done 20 minutes there, and I didn't fall one time until I was getting pinned." But folk don't realise it's not being lazy. It's working. You know what I mean? It's like if you're just bumping and bumping and bumping, you're doing it because you don't know how else to get a reaction. And if the first 2 bumps didn't get a reaction, the 18th one won't. So you're just doing it for no reason. So like when I'm saying this stuff to you, listen to me and try and take a leaf out of this book, because it's, you know, I've had 3 moves for 10 years. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know if anybody really noticed, but hey, you know now. And then I took one out. I used to do the big apron leg drop and it just took its toll. So I took that out. And I'm like, no, I've got 1 less move than 3. It doesn't matter. But that's what I'm saying. But I'm still getting the top matches. I'm still in the main event. And I want you to listen to me, because all these moves that you're doing and you're hurting yourself, you're always at A&E, you're resting. Why am I never hurt? Do you know what I mean? But that's what you want to do. You want to make it look real without killing yourself. That's the whole point. Drew McDonald told me this. Drew McDonald was the most believable villain I've ever seen in my life. Like I'm terrified of him. But then you wrestle him, and you need to keep checking he's there. He was so light. But when you were watching him, you would think he was murdering a person. And that's when I was like, and I mean, Drew, like he's mad. He is my hero. Because I took so much advice from him and watched him every single night, and just everything for how he worked and how he wrestled to the way he was when he was on the road, and how he treated the young guys, and how he was the absolute best. And I often think, like, I would love to hear what his opinion would be of wrestling these days.
Yeah, it'd be
a lot of bleeps.
unhinged.
Oh my God, he was wild, Drew. Absolutely wild. The best.
Yeah, and so I really like that. You know, you said that you had 3 moves, because a lot of people say that you should have 5 moves and you should kind of sort them out differently
Yep.
through three different kind of matches, which I think to an extent is true, but also believe that you still can do them moves without people getting bored if you do it right.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of get, because we haven't really talked about this, and it is a really big point of your career. Obviously, Insane Championship Wrestling ICW,
Yep.
which I started watching a while ago, which I first discovered you was on the documentary, because I was trying to look for new wrestling documentaries to watch, and I discovered you and Mark Dallas, and I found it really cool how Mark Dallas kind of started things up from scratch, and the way I could be wrong here on how it started, but with how ICW did start, I think it looked like WWE was kind of doing more corporate stuff, trying to get money out of people, and to me, it looked like ICW was just bringing back an era of wrestling that needed to be brought back. So talk us through how you first started wrestling for ICW.
So Dallas had run some shows prior to me working. I mean, like maybe a couple, and then he'd stopped. I think he just tried it and then never went back. But when I came back from All Star, this links back to what I was talking about earlier. I had spent all that time, being the flag waving guy. That again, I appreciated the work, and I was busy, and I got what I wanted. You're a full-time wrestler, but I was like, it's kind of know what I wanted to be a full-time wrestler, but not doing this. So I had an idea. That's when I first had the idea for a character that was based on kind of BDSM fetish. Just the look and at the time, I say at the time still is, my friend was like the kind of top dog in Dom. She was a dominatrix, but she was the top dog in Scotland. So she was like valeting me, and she was managing me, and we're just kind of playing about and having a laugh. And so I basically said to Dallas, I've got this idea for a character, but it's an adult kind of. It's kind of an ad, because it began as this could only be done in front of 18 plus. Obviously, it changed over the years, but I was like, just one more. Just it's the only place I can try it. Like, just do one more, and he did. We did one more in Maryhill, and I was wrestling that night, and again, it's mad. This ICW wasn't 18 and over back then. It was just a kind of wild show, but you could bring kids to it, right? Yeah. And my friend, who was the dominatrix, she was able to make herself sick on demand, right? So I was backstage, and I had pancakes that I'd mixed with red food colouring, and she was eating that and drinking Strongbow, the good cider. And at one point, I just gave her a cue, and she like put her head to the side and just kind of vomited this red sludge onto my opponent. And I remember the reaction, and I can't say it was good or bad, but something happened, and I just went, right, that something happened there. And that was the kind of first one back, and then it just kind of kept going. And Dallas, I think almost the same as Grado, no really getting, it's not, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves or whatever else, but I don't think anybody really has any idea just how impressive and how brave and bold and like Dallas was a struggling Glaswegian guy with a pregnant girlfriend, living in a homeless flat. Now, if ever there was a time to not spend money on starting a wrestling company, it was probably then. Right? For him to have made that decision at that point of his life, that was insane. Like, that was just, I don't understand. I would never have done that. You'd be saving every single penny to make sure that you're sick. And at the time, like, if you look back in like TV for the past, like, you would have the young ones, or that was for the youth. That was it pissed all the old people off because they were watching Coronation Street and East, and this was like nonsense. But it wasn't for them; it was for us. And at this point, there was really nothing for us. Like, it was like, even it was like the glamour mags. There was the big news was what Katie Price had worn at a dinner or something. And Dallas was like, there's nothing for us. And he didn't even cut a promo. He was just, there's a video of him, I can't remember where it is. and he's filming himself on his phone walking down Glasgow, and he's just angry, and he's kind of talking. He's like, where's this? We're just forgotten about it. We're just supposed to accept that this is the way it is now, and that's it. So he created it. It wasn't for us. So here it is. If you're not going to give it to me, I'll do it myself. And we started at Maryhill Community Central Halls. Just a tiny wee room. And at the time, I worked in Walkabout. The Australian bar. And underneath Walkabout was a comedy club called Apollo 23. And that was so we got that. That was ICW's first nightclub gig. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have any recollection, or I don't remember how we done it. I said this to Dallas recently. I watched back the documentaries, and it was like a kind of out of body experience, because I'm watching myself in Dallas and these massive crowd, and I'm like, I don't ever remember really trying that hard. Do you know what I mean? We gave everything we had, but it's so difficult. Like now, to draw crowds, you can see it. But back then, we weren't. It was just what we did. We weren't worrying about hitting algorithms and making sure that videos were only 1 minute and 34 seconds, or it doesn't. It's so clinical. We just went out there and went, bang, this is us, like it or don't. And the audience found us. Do you know what I mean? And there was that Apollo 23 club. The queue used to wrap around the building, and the queue was wild. Folk were like, it was chaos from start to finish. And then we jumped from there, to the Classic Grand and onto the garage. And from that first one with the red vomit, 7 years later, we did the Hydro, which was like it was the biggest drawn independent wrestling show in like 35 years or something. So, but this was just. It was just a group of people just going out there, and we were all working for the same thing. Like we all wanted a better scene. We all wanted better shows. We all wanted more creativity. We wanted all this stuff, because when I started training, everybody wanted to go to England, because there was really nothing happening in Scotland. But then not only did that change, but the world wanted to come to Scotland, and it was just the best. In Dallas he's just creatively, it's wild. It really is. Like Drew always called him the mad scientist, because if you look at an ICW show, just one of them from back then, from start to finish, between the promos and the segments and the matches and the characters and every single bit of that on a full-time basis, and there was fan magazines, there was recap shows, there was. And Dallas would make all. I remember we used to sit in Dallas's kitchen. People thought we had like the big office and stuff. That all came later, but that didn't make any difference. Like we used to sit in Dallas's kitchen, and Dallas would put his laptop in the fridge, because it was a shitty laptop and it used to overheat, and he would put it in the fridge to cool it down. And we were making that. Do you know what I mean? It just shows you don't need. I think a lot of people think you need the best equipment and the big offices and the help and the backing and you don't. You just need a bit of fucking get up and go and a desire to make things better. And it was incredible. And for Dallas to do that on a full-time basis, like even like you look at the Black Label storyline, that was like 2 years long.
Yeah,
2 years. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like it was. I don't know how he done it. I just don't. But it was just a wee Glasgow guy that was pissed off, and went out and created. What then became like one of the most kind of influential wrestling companies, and it will be forever, because it shouldn't have been able to happen, and it did. And I honestly believe that's what WWE coming to the UK, and it wouldn't have happened, because they've just. It's like that's the thing with the WWE. They'll see something and be like, right, we can't ignore that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a World of Sport. See the timing of that? Like it was like World of Sport, ITV, boom, NXT UK. Sign. Get them all. So it was. But at one point we had again, we every single show, you would have me, Grado, Lionheart, Drew. I mean, just every show. I don't know. I physically don't know how I done it, but it was just packed for the start to finish, and became this whole thing. And the good thing with ICW was it was a wrestling company, but it was a wrestling. ICW was for ICW fans. We weren't putting out a product that was suitable for the work. You know, anybody could watch it, but it was again that kind of, well, this is what we do. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. But it just turns out lots of people did like it, and it was kind of unapologetic. And then even when we toured, we worried the first tour because we thought we're a very Glaswegian company. Is it going to translate to, you know, London or Liverpool? Or of course it is. Like, it's just if something is of good enough quality, and you can see that the people that are doing it are doing it with every bit of their heart. You can't. The way I put this, I don't watch football, right? I've got no idea. I'm one of the few Glaswegians that couldn't care less about football, right? Right? I don't like it. But you know Ali McCoist?
No, never heard of him.
Ali McCoist. You know Ali McCoist. Ali McCoist he played for Rangers, right? And I can sit and watch. I remember getting a 3-hour rabbit hole and like TikTok watching Ali McCoist videos, talking about Rangers, talking about football, I don't know. I'm not interested, but he loved it so much, and the way he talks about it, it's like talking about one of his kids. And I'm engrossed in that because it doesn't. I don't need to know what you're talking about. Just I love watching or listening to people that are deeply passionate about a subject, because I get looked in, and I think that was the thing with ICW. It was an army of people going out to make something better and to say, well, it's been like this for a long time. It doesn't always have to be, and it was great.
And I think it shaped an era of British wrestling, because I think, I can't remember what it was called, but Grado made a documentary about British wrestling nowadays and said that it's nothing compared to when Big Daddy used to be around. And then people also didn't really need to wrestle, but when ICW started, it was the biggest, and it became the biggest in the UK. So, and obviously when it did become the biggest, they sold out shows, things like that. But ICW, in my opinion, you were obviously know more than I would about ICW, but it sounded like a big gamble because, you know, Mark Dallas didn't have very much money, and it kind of started off like that. But you know, you had a roster and passionate people, and that kind of shined through it. But so would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think it's being transparent. In fact, I was talking about Grado earlier, inviting the camera crew into his room and kind of going like, I'm just a normal guy, that I'm a wrestling fan. But in that same documentary, it's the first one. It's the one where I win the title in the first one, and there's a bit where Dallas is doing the run through, and if you watch, in fact, the whole thing, Dallas, not at one point does Dallas try and make out that he's a tycoon, that he's you know, it's not like he's there and he's going, this in the ABC, which sadly is no longer there anymore. You see the roster, there's so many of us, and he's standing and he's like, you know, this we're cracking it here. We're going to get, and I want one day for us all to be making some money. And you go, if you read between the lines there, you go, that's in Scotland or in Britain, that would have been what the highest drawn show. Nobody was doing shows like that. So surely we should already have been making loads of money, right? But he wasn't hiding it. He's just, and I think it was like, you know, there's times where I worry about, you know, I've got this show to pay and all that and blah blah blah, but then I've not got my shopping in yet. But I think that is the thing that it's almost like subliminally take it in. This guy who hasn't got millions and is struggling and is, you know, he's got a family, but he still has absolute motivation to do this thing that could ruin him. You know, it's like you cannot. I just don't think you can achieve anything of any value with a bit of risk. You need to be able to take that risk, and it's like it's bad advice. Like if I had to tell like how I did it, like I cannot tell you the amount of times I walked out on a job, just like that. Like I need Saturday off to do a show No, see you later. And I would just drop everything. Terrible advice. It's terrible advice to give somebody, right? Because you can't just walk out in your job. But then I go, well, I did. And it, didn't mean it was going to work. But you kind of, I had to work because I had a flat and now I have a job because I gave up my job to do that show, probably for about 50 quid or something. One show and then I'm unemployed. But you just have to. This is what I want to do, and I will do it. I'll try and try and try. And there's been many, many times where I probably should have. I definitely should have went, call it a day. 10 years in, your stuff, call it a day. But I never, because I knew I had that. It's like me saying about my matches, being comfortable, knowing that what I'm doing is enough. You just go, eventually, this will get noticed, and eventually it'll work out because it has to. And as far as being in Britain, one of the kind of biggest or most recognizable, I was never one of the guys who flew to America all the time. I didn't see the point. I didn't get it. Because I was like, well, I'm flying to America to do the same thing there that I could do here. Yeah. And I'll make more money here than I would over there. And quite frankly, nobody gives a fuck whether I've wrestled in Florida or Texas. What difference does it make? Except I'm going to be skint when I come back because I've paid for it myself. So I just stayed and I just consistently worked Britain for my whole career. That's why, because if you do something long enough and folks see you doing it for long enough and they see that you're doing it with everything you've got, it becomes undeniable. So you become recognised everywhere. But if you're jetting all over, again, if you're being paid for it, great. But nobody is. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That's just a fact. And it's like, I see there was this trend, maybe still happen, of young wrestlers bragging about how many countries they'd been to in a year. It was all like, all the wee flags. Cool. How much money did you make? Minus. You made nothing and it cost you. So it's like, why are you doing this? Do you know what I mean? It's like, but again, I think my advice is, I remember talking with Johnny Saint again. Johnny Saint he was coaching and he was talking and he kept saying, but remember, he kept calling himself a dinosaur. He was like, but remember, I'm an old man. It's just the way because a lot of the stuff isn't relevant to now. And in a way, it's true. But like I've got a really big problem with wrestlers paying their own transport or paying their own hotels or paying that. Right? That's no work. You wouldn't do it for any other job in the world. So why would you do it for this? So I've kind of been offering a lot of people for offering to pay. But then at the same time, I go, well, it's all right for me to say that. But if they don't, so if you're a young wrestler and you contact somebody and you don't offer to pay your flight or you don't offer to pay your hotel, somebody will. And they'll just take that person instead because you've not got the name yet. So in order to get it, the reason folk pay their own hotels is because everybody does it. But that's the problem because it's never going to stop. Do you know what I mean? So if you go into a promoter and you say, I'd love to work for your company, I'm willing to pay my own hotel and my own. If you do that one time, why would they pay you the second time? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you have to know your worth and you have to say no. And because at the end of the day, if you say I'll work for your company, but I want my hotels and blah, and they say no, you're not losing or making any more money. You're not doing the show anyway. So it's like, I don't see why you would like travel. And I get when you're a student and you're doing this stuff, but there comes a point where you at least don't offer it, right? If you're going to email somebody, don't say, I'll do all this for free. And I don't worry, I'll pay for my hotel. Like what are you doing? Right? So it's you just stay consistent. Do it with the best of intentions. And it's this whole busy thing. Like busy's good, but it's like just try and treat it like a job as opposed to ticking off a map of all the places you've been. It's because if you're making money doing it, then congratulations. But it's I think folk just treat it like a job. That's the thing that gets to be more than anything. Because we like talk about ICW as well. Like we did that. That was the whole thing behind it. We wanted to create something good, but it was this wrestling does not get taken seriously. and we wanted it to be taken seriously. And of course, it's silly and it's wild and it's this and it's that. But I defy you to come and watch it and not be impressed by it. But you do all that only for, years later for it to go straight back to the start again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's hard enough for wrestling to be taken seriously without the wrestlers themselves, showing it to be a farce. It's frustrating. But maybe I sound like Johnny Satan. I'm the dinosaur. I'm the dinosaur.
No, but what you're saying makes sense. If things are already working out, that makes sense. So I think a lot of the traditional ways are true, because it's a lot of the things people are doing nowadays aren't as good as I think in the world of sport era. So even if you
nowhere near, like, what are the sport, like, it's these guys were true professionals. Do you know what I mean? They were tough guys. They were, even back then, like, all these guys that were TV stars, they all had jobs. They were getting paid a fortune. They were running pubs and doing this. So they're doing that all week and then cut. And it was serious. It was really, really serious. But these guys were just master classes to watch. And I think a lot of people, you watch it now and you go, it's kind of boring. Nothing really happened. Maybe for if my nephews watched, they'd be bored. But if you're a wrestler, and one of the sport is boring you should probably go do something else, because it's not the lack of moves. Forget the moves. Watch what they're doing. Watch how they're timing things out. And bear in mind, this was all rounds back then, and it was sometimes down to the last second. And if you ever look at like an old booking sheet, and it's like all the rounds are written on the cards and stuff like that, it was pretty complicated. And Johnny Saint actually told me a story about, who was it? Jim Breaks. He said,
Jim Breaks.
Jim Breaks. Johnny had made his entrance, and a woman had given him a bouquet of flowers. It was, that would be weird now, but back then it wasn't. Gave him a bouquet of flowers, and he did the babyface thing in the ring. And he says, like, I stood there and I knew that I could predict what Jim was going to do when he came out, because nothing was by. It wasn't a mistake. Everything was for a reason. So Jim had seen the woman give him flowers. He's the bad guy. So he came out and he straight over the book, where's my flowers? Where's my flowers? And she was screaming and shouting at him. Then the whole crowd start booing. Johnny's carried his flowers like a baby face. He get in the ring. He starts berating Johnny. How come you get flowers and I don't get flowers? So Johnny, being the good guy, despite this person shouting in his face, took one of his flowers and held it out to him. And it was so cool, because it was like we didn't talk to each other. This was happening in real time. He says, I gave him one of the flowers, and as he went to take it, I flicked it up in the air, and when he looked up, I double legged him and got him for the pin.
Awesome.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's if you're a wrestler, that's the things that are cool. Just, you're tuned in, you can feel how to get reaction. You don't let anything go by. Everything's for a reason. Be present in your matches as well. Like, you need to be aware of it, not just in the ring. You know what's happening in the ring. Everything else is when you need to have the confidence. Like, for me, like, I remember I getting in a big fight with Lionheart years ago. We did a tour. I think it might have been in Newcastle or something, and it was still very much Black Label time. And I think it was me and Drew against Lionheart. I don't remember, but I was really, again, confident, and I just would not let anything, because I was a bad guy, right? And I really, and because Drew McDonald's my hero, I really wanted to be as good as I could be. And so if somebody shouted something at me, I wouldn't ignore it. And I think somebody had, I don't know, called me a wanker or something. I don't know what it was. But it's almost normal to just let that happen. I'm like, but no, called me a wanker. So I jumped off the apron, and I was over at the guys. And I used to always, because they would do it trying to be kind of anonymous. And then I would just go straight to them. They'd be like, well, you're so desperate to be part of the show, so say it. And I would make it awkward for them. And I think he kind of did this in my face. And I made the security throw him out. And I was like, get him. And the security said, I'm like, I'm not getting the fuck out of this building. But as he was getting like dragged out, he was kind of going, Jester, come on, like, it's part. And I was like, get on the fuck. And I made them throw this guy out the bit. No, it's a shitty thing to do, right? Because the guy was Scottish, so he'd obviously travelled to Newcastle to come and see us, and I got him thrown out in like the second match. But then we cut a whole bunch of the match out because I was doing that, and Adrian had he just went off his head. And I was like, "What are you?" That we would not have got a bigger reaction wrestling than that just did. All I've done there is allow you to just stand and just not do anything for like 10 minutes. Still to take the game. Do you know what I mean? Like we're doing this to get a reaction. So why on earth would I ignore that to go in and start hurting myself to try and get a reaction that was just as good? It's ludicrous, right? And it's like that, and that was very much a Drew McDonald thing. It's like he could start a riot before you start. It's like if we get the reaction, that's all that matters. How we get it is irrelevant, right? It's you just have to commit to the bit, I think. But I remember that day because Lionheart was furious, absolutely furious.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
Sorry. When you won the title, the ICW World Championship, that was obviously a big moment for your career. Winning at the time the top promotion and winning the belt, and being able to carry that belt. You know, Mark Dallas stated it very well in the documentary. Being a champion is more than just like putting a belt on someone. It's so much more than that. It's what carries the storylines for maybe even a year, or what makes the story the best. It's more than just win the belt. So what was it like being picked to be a champion with it was
I mean, like it was it's an honor anytime it happens, right? Or for anybody. But that company, the company that it was then was it was everything to me and him, and like it was really it kind of became all the one thing. Like I was the ICW guy, and I was so proud to be that person. Everywhere I wrestled, everywhere I went, like that's what I was known for. And I always flew the flag, and I was meant to get the title a few times before, but again, Dallas being Dallas, he would say it and go, "No yet." Because we didn't write 6 months of shows in a row, or so you would do you would do the show, see what happened, feel it, and then write it in real time for the next time. So it was topical, it was relevant. So, but you know, I didn't mind. Like he was just like, "No yet, cool, okay." And they went on, and it was, and when it actually happened, I remember thinking, "Thank God, he postponed this so many times," because like the reaction to it, like if you watch it, like I burst into tears at the end of it, because that's not a bit like I was genuinely overcome, and it was such a lovely reaction for the audience as well, because it wasn't a classic wrestling reaction, as in like screaming. It was like people going, "Yes, go on, big," as if finally you've done it, and because that match as well, like I bled out really bad in that match, because I got my head put off a table in the crowd, and there was a beer can, and it cut my head, and I remember I was slipping on my own blood. That's how much I was bleeding. So I was starting to kind of pass out towards the end. If you watch Lolly, who's my domination match, she's got blue roll, and I'm trying to kind of keep myself together. But that was also the first time my mum and dad had both been in the room watching me wrestling at the same time. My sister was in the audience, pregnant with my first nephew and stuff like that. It was just the best, most special night. But it's an honor because of, you know, they put the trust in you to headline this whole thing. That's a lot of pressure as well, because really, you know, if you're the champion of a company, you put a lot of pressure on yourself that really isn't your responsibility. You know, it's like you don't want to be the champion that has half-empty audiences, and it's nothing really to do with that, right? It's like it's not based on one person, but when you're the champion, you take it personally, and you have to, right? Because if you're the champion and you're going, "Okay, it's just that, that's just because of this happened," no, you need to be. The whole show rides on your back, whether they're asking you to or not. So, and then it becomes your whole thing, your whole personality. Or it should be. That's what I'm saying. But treating it like a job, like if you're winning that belt and you're seeing it for what it is, which is a leather strap with metal on it, like, you know, it's nothing to do with that. It's knowing that Mark had, of all the people, had, you know, trusted me enough and thought that I was the guy to do this, and then carefully planned out how to do it and when to do it to give me the ultimate reaction. Like that's I'll never for the rest of my life forget that. I'll never forget how it felt at the time. I'll never forget the reaction when I came backstage. I'll never forget it was the best. It was really the best. I stumble when I talk about stuff like this sometimes because I can't find the words to explain how I feel. And that's why it's lovely to kind of watch back and see these things and just remember that I was actually there, and I'm so lucky, and a lot of us are so lucky to have not just been around but been prominent in this time and watch it go from nothing to everything. Oh, yeah. It was absolutely brilliant. But Mark, he just, he's an instinct. He just knows when something should happen, and it's that confidence as well of going, I know I said no, but wait, because that it could go the other way, but it never, right? And it's just, he just knows. You have a feel, and he knows his audience, which is the absolute it cannot be understated that you need to know and appreciate your audience. Doesn't mean you pander to them and give them everything they want, but they're the ones that are buying the tickets for this. And I did a Windfall Sessions, Simon Cassidy's show with Veronica and Mark Coffey the other night. There's a lot of ICW fans, and the OG fans, I call them, like they've been there forever. And I said, like, I hope that you realised at the time that everything we did was for you, and we never ignored the fact you were there, and we never took you for granted, because I've seen that a lot with like there being a split between backstage and the audience, like wrestlers come back and making kind of snide comments or slagging the crowd off or whatever else, and it's just maybe a banter, maybe, but I'm like, you literally exist only because of them. They're not here. You're not here. You're not a wrestler unless there's somebody watching you.
Oh yeah.
So do you know what I mean? So I appreciate them, because you're going to be their best pal at the merch table when you're trying to fucking shift your merch. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's I don't know. I just think that they are the be all and end all of wrestling, like live entertainment in general. If nobody's watching it, there is no show. So when they're working their jobs and they're paying their bills and they're using their extra money to buy tickets to come and see you, then you should feel a pressure to give everything to them, because you know they're probably struggling financially because they've partly paid your wages, and that should be appreciated, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, even what fans do. If anyone, I'm not saying I'm Roman Reigns or The Rock or anything, but if I was at a show and someone asked me to, you know, sign an autograph or whatever, I would always do that. Not that anyone would expect me to charge. Obviously, I'm a 14-year-old kid. I'm not going to charge someone for an autograph. But if someone did, you know, I would always do that, because I find it myself, you know, that's rewarding for me. You know, that someone looked up to me so much that they would go over to me and ask me for an autograph or a picture. Like in my debut match, people were going over to me asking me to sign T-shirts, and doing photographs, things like that. But
cool,
never would I ever charge for that stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, right, it's each to their own, right? If you want to, go for it. I personally don't like it. Like I remember there was they maybe still do, but I remember I'd gone off my head because I can't remember. It was an American wrestler. It was an ex-WWE guy, and he was on a show, and he was charging people £20 to take selfies on their own phone. And I thought it was so cheeky. I'm like, but I'm like, he's in here. He doesn't really care whether they think he's a arsehole, because he's not coming back, and he's leaving with his pockets full of money, right? But I'm like, for you know, for a British wrestler or whatever else, you rely on these people, right? I don't mean slap on a fake smile and give them the banter. Like, just appreciate them, right? And it's like, if the first time you get asked to sign something, be honest with you, embarrassed, because I was. Because you think, you're going, what are you asking me for? Right? It's like, yeah.
Well, it wasn't really embarrassed, like, but I did kind of. But well, I suppose sort of it was because it was just kind of like a normal guy after that. But it wasn't like embarrassing. It was more like really hyped that someone was surprised that someone asked me.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like it's like it's like I don't know. It's like you get self-conscious that other people are watching you, and they're going to slag you for signing an autograph or taking a selfie or because it's through different media. So obviously wrestling, and then I get into acting and TV, theatre. You get it a lot during panel season, right? Because we do the shows every single day, 2 shows or 3 shows every single day, and people wait at the stage door to see the actors coming out. But the theatre that we do panel in is the theatre that I went to my whole life to watch panel. My mum and my grand used to take us, and I was the boy at the stage door. Like I remember it. I used to standing desperate to see somebody coming out, and you go like it's such an easy. Just stop and have a talk or have a laugh with one of the kids or something, because it's 30 seconds out of your day, but there's a good chance that kid's going to remember that for the rest of his life, right? Because everything's magical when you're a kid. It's wild, but it's about taking selfies, signing autographs, and it always amazes me how people go from hoping and praying that one day I want one person to ask me for an autograph, and then a month later they're moaning about having to sign things. No, you need to just stop them and go, think about, just say that back again. You're complaining about having to write your name on a bit of paper with a pen. Like, get over yourself. Do you know what I mean? Get over yourself. Because years ago, this was your dream, and now everything's a hassle. And I hear like wrestlers, like maybe like people that have been in the job 2 years, 3 years, and I'm like, the way you're talking sounds like you were wrestling giant haystacks back. You've been there for 3 years. How have you got so much to moan about? So many complaints, and do you know what I mean? It's like it's just like doom and gloom all the time, and it's their own fault. Like this wrestling can be the best job in the world. Trust me, it can be. I've done it, but you need to go into it the right way. If you're moping about the whole time and you think the world owes you something, and you're never happy with this and you're never happy with that, and get out, man. Get out, because you drag it down, and there's nothing worse than being around something like that all the time. But if you strip it all back, this job, it should be nothing but positive. It should be nothing but it never has been, obviously, right? But if you really take the wrestling side away and you just go, right, physically, what are we doing? I'm assuming at your age, and you're going to the training school in the morning, you're taking the ring down, you're packing the van, getting there, you're setting the ring up, you're dealing with the barriers, you're putting the chairs out, you're maybe helping sell merch, right? That no, a wrestling fan would pay to do that. And every one of us at one point was a wrestling fan who would have jumped through fiery hoops to see how a ring get built.
That's a great way to think of it.
Right? But 6 months in, you're trying to dodge out of promoting or doing the ring. I mean, it's the easiest. It's not even a hard job. It's not like you have it, 2 people having to lift the whole ring. It breaks down into bits. You carry it. It all slots in. There's no screw. It's a doddle. It's so easy, and you're doing it with your pals for a wrestling show that you're going to be at all night, whether you're watching or on it. Like this was your dream 6 months ago, and now you're moaning about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. I just don't. Like, even promoting, I'm like, right, strip it all back. You're walking about the city centre or wherever you are with your pals, giving out flyers for a show that you. What is to moan about? It's just it's a social thing. And another thing as well, if you dodge ring crew and you dodge flyering and you dodge all that stuff, you miss a vital part of building relationships. Because that's where I became pals with all my pals. And if you think like back 16, Drew, Wolfgang, Rudo, we're still friends to this day. And it's not really what happened in the ring or really even what happened backstage. It's the it's all the other nonsense that comes with wrestling. It's the 6 of you sleeping on the floor in somebody's spare room, or cramped in the back of a van, holding the shutter down on the motorway, trying not to fall out, or that's the kind of stuff. It's like you've been given this opportunity to hang out and travel with your pals, and at the end of the day, wrestle, which is the thing you want to do. So all these wee things that are seen as a chore, like the traveling and I know it becomes taxing after. I mean, I hate traveling now, but it's just because I've done it for so long. But it's you build it. Some of the best laughs I've ever had in my life are after shows, sitting in somebody's living room, or do you know what I mean? It's the best. But if you don't get involved in it, and you just go home and you straight to your bed and you're straight, it's like you're not enjoying the life of a wrestler. And quite frankly, you need that, because wrestling's a hard gig. It's physically hard. It hurts. It's difficult to go over. It's difficult to make money. Everything's hard. So if you don't have that fun bit and the camaraderie with your pals, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? So you've got this opportunity. Make the most of it from every, especially. And I'm talking to the perfect person here. You're 14. You're right there. Just experience every single bit of it. Take every opportunity. Try, offer your help. Go and do it. That's how you. It's not being a skivvy, or there's people that will absolutely try and exploit you. It's not if, right? You'll always have it's not about the money. It's about the passion. Yeah, I can have both though, right? It's like it's just you, but offer to do it. It cracks me up as well. Like if you see. Like for me, if I'm wrestling in England somewhere, I cannot leave that venue until whoever's driving me to the hotel takes me there. And it's normally the promoter who is there till the death, right? Just sitting there watching folk working, not offering to help them. It's crazy. I mean, roll a flight case out or grab a. It doesn't matter. Like it's just I don't get it. I would feel uncomfortable just sitting, and nobody wants you to help them. Like especially like me, and it kind of I find it quite sad when folk get really shocked and that I've offered to help. And I'm like that really shouldn't be that big a deal. You know what I mean? Just if you're all one of the boys, you're all to just chip in. It gets the job done quicker. You get back to your hotel quicker. You get in the shower quicker. Do you know what I mean? It's like but it's definitely what you make it. And if you make it a hard, miserable existence, that's what it's going to be. But if you just go back to when you were a wrestling fan, you'd never done this before, and think, if I was offered to do this, how would I have felt? And it's keeping that enthusiasm and keeping that, I had it for 20 plus years. And, wrestling certainly doesn't owe me anything. I'll owe everything to it. Every single thing, and I mean everything in my life, out with my immediate family, I have because of wrestling. Every friend, every relationship I've ever had, every job offer, panel, TV, acting, everything, literally everything, I can link back to me starting wrestling at 16. I've been through weddings, funerals, everything. It's like you just go. It's so interlinked. Everything I've ever done, I could always trace back to just after I found that yellow bit of paper.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible, and it just shows what wrestling can give you in your life. Like already, I've been wrestling for almost 10, so and I've been able to make friendships with people. Have matches, and I'll, as you said there about helping out, I'll never like complain over setting up over what is it, like putting up chairs, whatever. It's not really that big a deal, as you said. I couldn't agree more with you about that. But as we're kind of coming to the end of the podcast, I want to get one last topic in before we have to go here. So Drew McIntyre, one of your very good friends, obviously you had a match with him. It was on the documentary, and when you had to lose to Drew McIntyre, you got a bit emotional. Stuff like that. So talk us through that and tell us, why you felt like that.
Because, like I said earlier, like you have to treat it with, as much respect as you possibly can. Like that's it became who I was That, you know what I mean? It wasn't just I had this belt. Like I was the champion. So with the pressures and the come with it, but also it's hard to, how to explain this. It comes with a lot of pressures and a lot of responsibility, but it also comes with like a great feeling of pride, and you are the guy. Now, anybody who loses a title, it should be difficult. It should be. No, but listen, it's not like I didn't know what was happening. It was also the absolute perfect. I always say this, like, Mark booked me so strong, right? He really booked me strong, and it worked. It was getting to the point where, like, I'd beat Sabu twice. You know, I did matches with Fergal Devitt, and every import, I wrestled every single one of them as champion. So therefore, I had won, right? So it got to the point where if I was wrestling anybody who wasn't, you know, at least at my level or above, I was clearly going to beat them. Because if Sabu couldn't beat me and Devitt couldn't beat me, and how is this guy? Do you know what I mean? So it was like, it was almost perfect timing. Like I always joke with Drew, like, you get sacked at the best time for me. So, because if it wasn't Drew, what was going to happen? Because I'd been booked so strong. So at this point, when Drew had, and another thing is the emotion, I'll tell you how that all came about as well. Drew gets signed when, what age was he? Very, very early 20s, right? So I'd met Drew when I was 16. We hit it off straight away. We liked all the same stuff. Like Drew's really into he's the same music. Guns N' Roses, loved them. Films, comedy. We just clicked. But I went down to meet Drew. I went down to Drew's house. So Drew's from Ayr, famously. I'm from Glasgow. It's about a 40-minute train drive. And the first time I went to visit him, or stay at his house or whatever else, we went to the gym, and I met a girl that worked in there. So I started to get out with her, and I moved to Ayr, and I didn't tell him. So there was one day, you know, I had fully moved to Ayr. I had a house, I had everything, but didn't tell Drew that I was living in the same town as him. And we were walking through the town centre one day, and I was like, I just need to nap up here for a second. And he's going, where are we? And I was like, and we were in my house, and I went, I moved to Ayr. And he's like, no, you never. And I remember I was like, go check that wardrobe. He opened the wardrobe. He's like, it was clearly my clothes, right? So, but then Drew was having his tryout, and I remember, I talk about it all the time, there's a pub called Smith's, there's a beer garden at the front, and he told me that he'd been signed. And it was, to say I was shocked, it's a weird one, because it's like, well, of course, I mean, there's nothing, of course you were going to get signed, but at the same time, nobody had ever done it before. Like, not before him, there's not one Scottish person had ever done it. He had Scottish gimmicks and people who had Scottish family, but Drew is the first person who has ever went from Scotland to America, right? In his early 20s. He's also a tiny wee seaside town, so going from there to America was like mind-blowing. But anyway, years passed. Since then, Drew and I have only ever seen each other a maximum twice a year. And it's only because he's back here for WrestleMania Revenge Tour or whatever else. So we never ever saw each other. So when Drew got released and he came back to Scotland, we had all the time in the world we could, and we point blank refused to see each other or talk to each other. No, that was the difficult part, because now my best mate, who I haven't seen ever in like 10 years or whatever, is 40 minutes away, and I can't go see him, and he can't come and see me, and we were so strict about it. We also made a pact, like, we know each other, so I know what you don't like, and I know how to get to you, and vice versa. So game on, and we agreed to it, and it got to a point where it started to kind of become a bit hazy. Like I was going for the jugular, he was, and we were really pissing each other off, to the point where I was like, we were on the brink of actually really no talking. And I was worried about it, because we went into that match we still hadn't spoke to each other. Like we were kept completely separate. So if you what the tensions, I remember that day. I remember it was and it was at the Barrowlands, right? That's one of the most legendary music venues in the world. My grandparents met in that room. The room that we wrestled in that night, it was an old dance hall, and my grandparents met in there. And I don't ignore. I'm an emotional guy, and I see the poignance of a lot of stuff. So I'm like, right, I'm about to, and we'd sold it out as well. And it's the only I remember the phone call, and it was, I think it was a month before the show or something, and Dallas asked, like, how does it feel to sell the Barrowlands out? And they'd only announced me and Drew. So we sold that out, and Drew to this day says that's one of his proudest achievements. And folk find that strange considering he's done WrestleMania, and he was like, we did that. Like we did that. Like it was, the machine wasn't behind us. So like, I was driving there. I was about to wrestle Drew. We hadn't been talking. It was sold out. If it hadn't been for that room, none of my family would exist, because my granny and granda wouldn't have met. And it was so I built it all up, and we get in there, and it was as real and as serious as it could be, because how could we expect the audience to believe it if we didn't? You know, and it was like, in fact, this actual story, me and Drew did a radio documentary for the BBC, because they picked up, they were doing a documentary on grudges, and this had stuck in somebody's mind, and we told the whole story about how we were actually best pals who were playing parts, but we played them full time, so that the payoff at the end was the best that it could be, and we treated it with like ultimate respect. But then when we get back through the curtain, it was straight back to the start again. Like we kind of escaped that actual fallout that we had. And Drew, I just don't know. I just don't think there was anybody else that was, that could have been more perfect to take it off me at that point in time. And then obviously Drew coming back here, that reaction, his comeback to ICW it's one of the best things. It ended up in the Stone Cold podcast and all that, and we orchestrated that as well. We had that. None of the ICW did not know that was happening. Like I knew it was happening. Dallas knew it was happening, but we had to get Drew taken in the back door again. If the ABC is no longer there, we had him the whole time, and only the people involved knew. So when the lights went out and the lights came on and Drew pulled his hood down, backstage went just as nuts as it was. And it was so quick as well, because like the 90 no, I don't know how we got around it, but Drew was like fresh off TV, and all of a sudden, bang, here he's there, and he spoke in a way that he'd never spoke before, because he didn't need to watch what he was saying. And I think that's when, and Drew was angry as well. When Drew got released, he was angry, and his goal was to go out there and make them realize they'd made a mistake. And he became, as far as I don't know how Drew done it. His schedule he'd be in Canada, Germany, Australia, Scotland. It doesn't even make sense how you can get there in time, but he just tunnel vision, and it's talk about working out for him. They couldn't ignore that they'd made a mistake by booking him wrong the first time and letting him go, and knew the whole world wanted him, and they wanted him back. And like Drew is, I could talk about Drew for days. Like he's just, I'm so proud of him for everything. He's the first to do so many things. First to be signed, first to win the Rumble, first to be champion. And even with the COVID era, I felt so bad for him, because he won the Rumble. Yeah, the guy. So he won the Rumble. He was going out to WrestleMania. They sent him back to Scotland to film. Do you remember the advert where he's in the Highlands and he's got the big barrel?
Yeah.
So they sent him back to film that. And he was supposed to, we had a big surprise party and stuff planned for him. And that's when he got a phone. He phoned me and says, they've just contacted me and says, you're coming home now. Trump's going to shut the borders. So I went to the airport to see him. And he just looked, he looked gutted. And because he just knew, he went, that this is going to get ruined for me. So of the work that he put in to get there, and there's going to be no audience. He's beaten Lesnar in an empty studio, but I've always been Drew's kind of like, you know, Jiminy Cricket on his shoulder, like just reminding him, like, not only are you the first Scottish wrestler to do all these things, you're the first ever wrestler, that's ever existed that has become champion in an era with no fans. His full first run was nobody there. So Drew's having to create this style of working because he's not got a live audience to work from. And that's why it was so cool when he won the belt in Germany just there. The first time Drew ever got to walk out a curtain holding that belt was in Glasgow.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Couldn't he have worked out more? And it's like, it was a long, twisted road to get there, but that bit, for him to walk out, and he's never, ever walked out a curtain with that belt to an audience. And it was his home crowd.
That's absolutely
incredible. It was great.
Can't get any better than that. Now, as we're kind of coming to the end of the podcast, if you bear with me here, I'm just going to announce some of the stuff. Well, first of all, I'll show this. So, wrong thing. So on your stuff, you can follow Jack Jester on Instagram. Make sure to check it out. Make sure to give him a follow at Glasgow Jester 69, and then you can check out his podcast, the Brass Neck Podcast. Make sure to give that a good check. It's not all professional wrestling that he does, but he's done a really good episode with Wolfgang. Yeah, it was Wolfgang, wasn't it? So that was really cool.
Yeah.
And so yeah, make sure to check that out.
Yeah.
So check all the socials out. Absolutely amazing interview I just done there. And coming up next on Kayfabe with Keaton, on the 12th of April, 7 p.m. UK time, I'm having one of the best up and coming talents in UK wrestling right now, Charlie Mayne, trained by Marty Jones, trained right from the World of Sport era. He is someone to look out for, and is now touring all around the UK, and is even wrestled in my home promotion in Northern Ireland, even doing a proper European tour right now. So he's an absolutely incredible guest to be having on soon. But as for you, Jack, I want to thank you very much for coming on. That was really insightful.
That was great. Can I just say what you're doing here is really impressive. It's great. You can tell you've got a real genuine care and love for this. Like you've dropped a few references during this that have even surprised me. So at 14, if you've got your head screwed on this way, and you're as interested as you are, and you've always got a bit of knowledge, you're doing a really good thing. And you know, I'm going to start watching your. I've not watched any of your stuff yet. I tend to go into things blind, but you noticed that you mentioned an interview that's coming up soon that I'm interested in listening to. But well done. It's been lovely. It's been such a good interview. And you've not asked all the same questions that everybody else does. So it's well done, man. It's really good. Really good.
Yeah, thank you. So for everyone watching, thanks all for watching. We'll see you on the next one with Charlie Mayne. Bye for now.
Bye.